The following is an exclusive presentation of Jessup Broadcasting, the sports leader in Southeast Georgia.
World famous. The world famous Butch and Bob Show.
And good morning to you. You're listening to the Big Dog, WIFO FM in Jessup, 105.5 on your FM dial. It is a Friday morning, first day of spring. It is the 20th of March. Butch Hubbard here with you, along with Bob Morgan and the world famous Butch and Bob Show, brought to you by Nips Car Wash, located on Highway 301 South here in Jessup, just past McDonald's on the left, and by Murphy Builder Supply, located on Northeast Broad Street in downtown Jessup. And Bob, you still doing good? You here with us this morning?
I'm here.
You're here.
I'm ready to roll.
All right.
Our District Attorney Jackie Johnson in the studio is with us. Special guest. Got another guest in the green room talking about the importance of blood. So we'll get to her in about 15 minutes. But Jackie's with us here this morning on the World Famous Butch and Bob Show. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Bob, for having me.
Always good to see you. You're running for re-election.
Yes, I'm up this year. I'll be on the November ballot. Actually, I'll be on the May ballot, but I am the only person running on the Republican ticket. So I don't have any opposition in May, but I will possibly have someone in November.
Yeah, I met him at Taste of Wayne. Keith Higgins was at the Taste of Wayne saying he has to get like 6,000 signatures to get on the ballot as an independent. So that seems like a tall task.
Yeah, to run as a Democrat or a Republican, you can go sign up and pay your money, but you can also get on the ballot by getting enough signatures as an independent, and I think that's the route he's chosen to take.
And he's from Glenn County, is that correct?
Yes, down in Brunswick.
Well, tell us about your campaign. Like I said, it's a big circuit. Like I said, it's Wayne, Applin, Jeff Davis, Camden, and Glenn. So I'm sure you're out seeing people campaigning.
We've had a good time. We were down at Scriven about 2 weeks ago at the softball tournament. We did Odom Day. We did the Veterans Parade. I think we did the MLK Parade. Trying to remember what all we've done. It seems like we've got something in Scriven about every other weekend. They do a lot down there. But been out a lot in Wayne County, gotten to see a lot of people. I feel very good about Wayne County. A lot of good people here, a lot of good support here. I think what's good about me is I have a record. This will be my 10th year as district attorney. You know me, you know my people, and you know what we stand for. We care about this community, and I'm a Republican. I'm not afraid of that. I'm about law and order, and that's important. It's also important to temper that sometimes, and we do that. We have a drug court program, and we have a pretrial diversion program for first-time offenders, and we move a lot of cases that way. But what we have tried to shift our resources since I've been district attorney and really focus on the things that are important to the community, things that put our citizens at risk, things like violent crime, things like some of the heavier drug cases. And one of the challenges I've had since I've been district attorney is a few years back, we basically had a lot of drug dealers and gang members moving into our county. And with the help of people in my office and the sheriff's office and the police department and the GBI, we've really been able to target some of those people and disrupt that activity and move them out of this county so that they can see that Wayne County is not a safe haven for drug dealers or for gang members. And we've still got some cases that we've got to resolve, but I feel very good about what we've done. The challenge to that is you're doing some tough work at the courthouse. You don't always make everybody happy, so you never know what's going to happen in an election. But what you hope is that the people see that what you've done and that you do have a record will come out and support you.
What's taking place right now with what's going on? Social distancing. Is any court taking place? I know we were supposed to have that murder trial this week. It got postponed. Did it get postponed due to the virus? Or
yes. Well, what's going on, Bob, and it's really been a challenge for us, but I think there's a silver lining in everything. It's really forced some positive changes. On Tuesday, and also we are scheduled for next Wednesday of this week. Sheriff John Carter has been working with us. It's a tremendous amount of resources to have court. You've got to secure inmates. You've got to bring them from the jail to the courthouse, and you've got to have them signed up and ready to plea on cue when the judge is there, and it's just a lot of logistics. One of the things that sheriffs has been working on for years is getting video feed to the courtroom from the jail so that we don't have to risk the security and other things. And now, especially with the containment of that virus, transporting inmates is especially a risky situation. So what we're doing is we're allowing them to be videoed from the jail into the courtroom, and the Supreme Court put out an order on Sunday, an emergency order from Atlanta, that basically until April the 13th, we can use extreme measures and do things to keep our court system moving. In the last several days, one of our big concerns is during this crisis that our sheriff has enough space to house people in the jail if something new should happen with our court system shut down, because the biggest side effect of court being shut down is your jail population basically stays there unless you can figure out some way to get them out by agreement without having a court hearing. So what we're doing is we're making agreements to get people out on bond where we can on more of the nonviolent offenses. We got several out that way this week. We're pleading cases to probation if we can, but the good news is we can do that by video now, and I expect we'll be doing some of that Wednesday. We're doing some of that today in Appleton County. So as of this week, in 4 of our 5 counties, we're set up to do that, and our judges have blessed that and have gotten on board with that. Our sheriffs are very much in favor of it because it improves their ability to do their job, and it makes their employees safer. So that's what we're going to do for the time being. I don't know how long this is going to last, but one of the things we're doing is working closely with the sheriff to keep that jail in good shape while this goes on. I mean, we can't send an order came out yesterday, we can't send anybody to prison while this is going on. So the sheriff is stuck with whoever he's got while this is happening. So we need to work with him as closely as we can to keep our jail population managed.
If you just joined us, District Attorney Jackie Johnson in the studio with us again. As I mentioned, this week they're supposed to have the Earl Watson murder trial. That's been rescheduled for May 26th. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think unfortunately you've probably got a lot of listeners that know what it's like to go to a jury selection in Wayne County. But
those people that got the 300 summons, according to Francis, they can just throw those away.
They do not have to come.
Right, they won't be coming May 26th. They'll have a new panel altogether, is what she told me.
We'll have a new panel completely. Is that right, John? We'll draw a new panel. If you come to jury duty by no choice of your own, you're forced to be in a large crowd of people. Same thing with grand jury. We typically have in 30 to 40 people, and then we'll pick a grand jury of 23 to 26 members. And so we've suspended our jury trials. We've suspended our grand juries throughout the circuit, which means I can't indict anything, and we can't try anything. So again, it really puts us in a dilemma with our jails. But as of now, we have started rescheduling things in May, the Watson trial being one of those. We've got some cases down in Glenn County that we've had to reschedule, and we're very hopeful that we'll be in a position in May to resume things, hopefully.
Another high-profile case here in Wayne County was the Harder shooting, and people are perplexed. The indictments came almost a year later. Explain why it took so long to indict in that case.
Well, the good news is in most of our cases, law enforcement arrives on scene, GBI comes in, and it's not too difficult to determine about what happened pretty quickly. Sometimes the actual facts hinge on very fine points, like crime lab results. And all of our crime lab results have to go to Savannah and get behind all of the other counties that are ahead of us in the queue. DNA, ballistics, things like that take a lot longer than drug analysis do. So this was a case where when we sat down and met with the GBI, we really felt like to make a good decision on it, to make an informed decision, we really needed to have some crime lab results. And so we waited for that to get back. And it was also a case in Georgia, you have, which is a good thing about being a citizen of Georgia, which is the case of a lot of the states in the South, but we have very good, very strong self-defense laws. And if a person if there's a theory of a self-defense on a case, we want to look at that especially closely before we go forward, so that a jury or a grand jury that's determining that can vet that information and determine how they feel about that. One of the things, and I think you saw this in the Watson case, and you don't have this right in every state, but in Georgia you actually have a right to a pretrial determination by a judge as to whether or not you acted in self-defense. So if there are any issues of self-defense in a case, we are especially cautious before we move forward, because we know that that's a difficult burden. And again, a person should have a right of self-defense, and so we have to look at that. And I run into this all the time. Not every homicide. There's a lot of things that you would call a homicide in Georgia. We have vehicular homicide, homicide by vehicle in the first degree. We have second-degree murder. We have malice murder. We have felony murder. We have some manslaughter charges. So just because a person's dead, you don't know exactly how to classify it sometimes. And if it's self-defense, it's justified, which means it's not a crime at all. So we want to get it right. So there's a lot of thinking that just because somebody's dead that it's an easy call, and it's not a lot of times. So we wanted to get it right. And what we did on the harder case is because there were some of those issues that we knew were there, we presented it to the grand jury in a civil fashion, which means that we didn't present an indictment to start with. We said, here's the evidence, tell us what you think, and based on that first grand jury, we made some decisions, and then we took it to the second grand jury with the indictment. And the reason we do that is ultimately, and again, this is one of the great things about being a Georgia citizen and being a United States citizen, ultimately, you have a right to a jury of your peers that makes the ultimate call. And we see a lot of things at the courthouse, and we form opinions based on what we do because we do this every day, but it's always interesting, and you always learn something to get a community perspective. And what a jury is going to do in Wayne County is different than what a jury is going to do in Glenn County or Fulton County. And that, to me, is what really brings the quality of justice to your community, how involved your community is in your court system. And here, and I think a lot of the credit goes to you, Bob, we have a community that is very much informed and knows what's going on at the courthouse and is better able to make good decisions when they do come in as jurors. We have pretty sophisticated jurors and grand jurors, and a good barometer of what a jury is ultimately going to do on a case is what your grand jurors think.
Other high-profile cases the last couple of years have been the drug and the gang-related. I know the governor's made a big initiative to try to help that regard. You know that better than anybody. And like I said, the last several murder trials we've had in Wayne County have all been gang-related. And I've told people I've learned more about gangs than I care to know. I mean, it's amazing. They got their own language, they got their own Bible, everything like that. But talk about how I think we still have some of those still on the book here in Wayne County as well.
Well, I will say that Wayne County has been a test case for us to learn a lot about gangs that I didn't know. We tried the case a few years ago here that involved, it was essentially a blood hit, and there was more than one. We had several that happened right there together. But when you have drugs in your community, the supply for those drugs and the mechanism by getting those drugs out to consumers is typically gang related. And I know people in Wayne County don't believe it happens here, but it happened here. And we actually had evidence that it was Mexican gangs that were sending in high quality methamphetamine into Wayne County. And you would like to think that we could stop it, and we do put a lot of efforts into stopping it. But what I've learned is you have to disrupt it in your county and keep them out of your county and keep them on their toes and prosecute them, and it's an ongoing battle, because if you don't, they will set up base here, they will take root here, and they will operate out of your county. And we had that going on for a period of time here in Wayne County, and I think it's because with criminal justice reform under the former governor, really what he did is he took a lot of money out of the state grants for drug enforcement and put that into drug court. Well, drug court's a good thing, but you've got to have on the other side strong drug enforcement, and if you don't, and you're just leaving it to the local authorities, typically they don't have the resources to put into higher level investigations. And higher level drug investigations is where you get to the problem and disrupt this stuff. It's very easy to go out and arrest somebody for a small piece of cocaine or a little bit of meth. It's much more difficult to spend the time and work on it long term and get the connections about where the amounts are coming into this county, who's bringing them in, who the local connection is, because there's always a local connection. And if you spend and invest the time to do that, and we've got a sheriff's office that's committed to doing that, and a police department that's committed to doing that, you will see long-term results in your county. And so that's been a challenge, because again, particularly with a lot of the turnover that you've had in law enforcement over the last few years, it's easy for a law enforcement officer to run out and make a drug case. You can make them all day long. The question is, can you put bigger resources and intelligence into it and try to go after the bigger cases? And that's what we've tried to do here. And I've had several comments from some of the surrounding counties. If we disrupt them here, they're moving over to Long County. They're moving over to Glenn County. And in fact, there's a network, and we discovered in these gang cases that there's connections to the Bloods down in Glenn County. There's connections into Hinesville, Gangster Disciples, Ghostface Gangsters. We've had all of those that we've had to deal with in these series of murders over the last few years. And the big connection, and they're hand in hand, it's the gang and it's the drugs. So people that think drugs are a victimless crime, we know better. It's going to lead to something really bad.
They always say that if there's a demand for something, somebody's going to meet that demand. And that's really the sad part, is the fact that there's so many people out there who want to buy these drugs. It's got to be a lot of them in order for these people to take all the risks they do to bring income into the counties and maybe be arrested and stuff like that, and have to be kind of cloaked behind the scenes thing to sell these products and drugs to the public out there. So that's, to me, the sad commentary on society, is the fact there's such a demand that people are willing to take a lot of risk to provide these drugs to them.
There is, and I know we've been at war on drugs since Nancy Reagan. I think if anybody knew the magic bullet answer, we wouldn't be here. I have seen, and John Johnson, who's with me here today, some horrible things. A man that will kill his own mother and hide her body and never tell anybody where she is until we find her. A hunter found her 6 or 8 months later while he was going out hunting down in Glenn County. To leave your baby in on a June day in a hot car all day long while you go into a hotel room and get high and your baby burns up, essentially. I've had that happen down in Camden County about a year and a half ago. People will do anything to get this stuff, and the only answer, or the best preventative measure, is never try it. Because if you look at some of the statistics on people that start off trying this stuff, they're going to end up. You look at the pictures of this is what you look like before you do meth, and this is what you look like, and you don't have any teeth, and you look horrible. You look like a zombie walking around.
You look like a zombie.
You look awful. Yeah. And people say, "Why would anybody do meth?" Nobody chooses to do meth. They've gotten to meth because they can't get the oxycodone, they can't get the hydrocodone. They've moved up to that level, and they're so desperate they'll do anything. And with the Mexican drug cartels and the gang stuff that we dealt with a few years ago, what ultimately led to those deaths, our local drug dealers were selling drugs on credit like they'd always done. Well, the drug suppliers wanted their money, and where they come from, they kill people for not paying their drugs, and that's why we ended up with some murders here.
What the heck's going on down in Glenn County? And I see law enforcement being indicted, your assistant DA's in the news, so explain what's going on down in Glenn County.
Well, one of the most difficult parts of my job as district attorney, you want to be in sync with law enforcement. We rely on them so much to do our job, and we really do have exemplary law enforcement in Wayne County and throughout the circuit. I mean, people that I pick up the phone and they do anything for us, and their heart is where our heart is, protecting the public and getting bad guys off the street. It's unfortunate from time to time, and you're seeing it a lot more now than you have historically, and I think that's due to there's a lot of people leaving the law enforcement profession, and there's a lot of new people coming in, and less because there's such a dearth in people willing to go into that profession with all of the danger and the trouble involved with that and the lack of pay. You've got a lot of turnover, and you've got some and unfortunately they've lowered standards in some places to get people in to fill these jobs, and so you're seeing that. And so when I first started as district attorney, it was very unusual for us to have a case involving a law enforcement officer, but I've had a few to deal with, and you don't want to have to prosecute a law enforcement officer. It's easy to prosecute the gang member. It's hard when you've got a law enforcement officer on the other side, but as district attorney, you have to apply the laws equally to everybody, and so when one comes along, you've got to look at it. Down in Glenn County, we did the same thing we did up here with the Harder case, is we presented these things in a civil nature to the grand jury last term, and the grand jury last term told me, you need to submit this to the next grand jury for possible criminal indictment. I brought in a special prosecutor from Atlanta who was a retired district attorney from up in Clayton County. I said, look at this and tell me what you think. She says, this needs to go to the grand jury, and so we took it to the grand jury. One of the things a lot of people don't understand, as a law enforcement officer, the law enforcement officer has a right to come and tell his side of the story to the grand jury. So they get a benefit that a lot of people don't get. And so we went through that process down in Glenn County. Essentially what this involved is drug enforcement agents, one of them with an improper relationship with one of the confidential informants. They continued to make cases. They sent him off to rehab and brought him back and put him in the squad, didn't tell anybody, and we had about 18 months of bad cases in Glenn County, which is terrible. That means drug traffickers had to be let back out on the street because we had bad cases. That officer, of course, entered his guilty plea and gave us information. A lot of other officers came forward and gave us information, and as a result of that, we presented to the grand jury about 2 weeks ago. And John Johnson, I brought him down because he's my chief assistant. He's got a lot of experience, and of course he's from Wayne County, so he doesn't deal a lot with those officers. I felt like he would be objective along with the special prosecutor, so that's what we did, and we followed that procedure. As a consequence of that, one of those indicted officers felt like after the fact that he should come up and seek his own warrant against John Johnson up here in Wayne County. So there is a pending warrant application against John, and I've told John, and he understands, anybody in my office is going to go through the process just like what anyone else is. So our judges have recused themselves from that particular case. Our judges in our circuit have given it to Savannah, who appointed another judge, and I believe he is from Savannah. But he'll sit down a hearing on that, and John will have an opportunity to be heard, and the officer that is seeking the warrant against John will have an opportunity to be heard, and we'll see how the process plays out. I'm confident that ultimately that judge will determine that there's nothing that John has done that's in any way criminal. Unfortunately, when you do your job as attorneys at the courthouse and as judges and as district attorneys, you don't make everybody happy all the time, which makes it politically very challenging.
Well, like I said, we got another guest agreement. Like I said, you are running for election, so when people go to the polls on May 19th, why should they vote for Jackie Johnson for DA?
Well, again, our record. You know what we are. We've been here 10 years, and you're not just voting for me. You're voting for a lot of good people from Wayne County, like Helen Aberly, John Johnson, Sherry Gibbs, Chad Highsmith, Tacosa Polite. I think I've got most every Amanda Parker, and people that are connected, rooted in Wayne County. They know the people in Wayne County. They care about being here. One of the biggest things I've been able to accomplish as district attorney, and I think it would be that my most what makes me most proud is I've been able to put good people in these jobs, because as district attorney, we've got 4,000 criminal cases coming in 5 counties a year. Jackie Johnson gets to be involved in some of those, but I can't handle 4,000 cases every year myself. I have to rely on good people with good judgment, with good character, that are invested in caring the community. And we have that in Wayne County, so much so that I often pull people out of my Wayne County office to help me in some of my other counties, but just because they've got that experience and they've got the character and the ability to do it. And I can't say enough about Sherry Gibbs. I mean, she is phenomenal, Sherry Westbury Gibbs. She does all of my, people think about district attorneys, you just go to court. I deal with 47 employees. We deal with grants in Atlanta. We deal with getting people trained. We deal with 5 counties for our budget every year. There's a lot of moving parts to running this office, actually 4 offices in my 5 counties. And having her and people like her, people like John, who brings over 42 years of criminal trial experience to the table. There's 49 district attorneys in the state of Georgia, and I get to see a lot of them at conferences and go to places and talk with them about problems on the phone. Not everybody has that. That's something that's valuable to us here, and it really does bring a better quality of justice to the people that live in this community.
When people go to the polls to vote for you, will it be in May or will it be just November?
I would appreciate people to vote for me in May. There will not be.
You will be on the ballot.
I will be on the ballot as a Republican, but I'm the only Republican running in May, and then I will also be on the ballot in November as the Republican for district attorney.
Well, we'll have you in before then. Again, we appreciate you being here. Like I said, you're regular on the show. We appreciate you being on the show. It gives a lot of information to our listeners, so we appreciate it. But wish you the best of luck, and like I said, we'll see you now between now and May.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Butch.
All right. District Attorney Jackie Johnson, our special guest this morning here on the world-famous Butch and Bob Show. Another guest coming in just a moment here on the world-famous Butch and Bob Show. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm 8 years old. I spend each day wondering if I have food in my tummy or if my parents leave and come home. A lot of times when they do, they are so drunk they don't even notice that I'm there. My stepdad gets really angry and takes it out on my mom. My sister and I hide in our closet until it's over. Sometimes he hits us really hard. He says what happens at home stays at home, so we aren't allowed to tell. Besides, who would listen anyway?
Nobody longs for a loving family more than a child. By becoming a part of Tri-County CASA, you can help hundreds of children who live right here in your community. Tri-County CASA is currently looking for volunteers who have a heart for helping abused and neglected children. If you'd like to help make a difference, become a volunteer. Contact Pam Holmes at Tri-County CASA at 912-367-0064.
827, 105.5 FM in Jessup, Big Dog Country Radio. Another guest here on the world-famous Butch and Bob Show. Who do we have, Bob?
Well, we got a lady with the Red Cross. Again, we've talked about how important, with this situation underway, how important it is to give blood, and the governor's encouraging people to give blood. So Cindy's here, so Cindy Bowers. So you're at the Red Cross. You want time to tell us the most important information we need to know. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, there's a severe shortage going on, and it's not just here in the state of Georgia. It's actually nationwide. And the other day, the Surgeon General for the United States of America came out in a press conference with President Trump and indicated how important it was for people who are healthy enough to actually come in and donate. And there's a lot of information out there, and it kind of gets garbled sometimes. So I wanted to kind of sort through some of it. A lot of people are concerned about going to mass gatherings, and they should be. A blood drive is not a mass gathering. A blood program is something that is highly coordinated. And a couple of things that the Red Cross is doing in order to be able to make it even safer is we're asking everyone to make an appointment so that we can be vigilant about social distancing. We are asking people to make an appointment. If they don't feel good the day of the drive, cancel that appointment so it can go to somebody else. We're also asking them to do a thing called Rapid Pass, and Rapid Pass allows them to go online the day of the blood program and answer a series of questions in order to be able to expedite their donation process. And then take their temperature right before they leave their home. And if it's 99.5, cancel their appointment so that it can go to somebody else. But it's
99.5 or higher.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, so we're really asking people to be vigilant on their own. Some of the things that the Red Cross is doing as far as extra precautionary measures is we're doing additional cleaning. We are also taking their temperature as soon as they arrive, and if it's at 99.5 or greater, we're asking them to please reschedule. So we're not asking them to come into the actual physical spot where we're having blood donors, but kind of taking that before they ever get into that room. So that's one of the things. We're also doing additional cleansing. So normally we cleanse between donors, but we're using some additional products in order to be able to make sure that every surface that people touch is clean. We're also asking people when they do enter the blood drive, if they've done Rapid Pass, they're not going to need to touch as much equipment. So we're hoping that by doing some of those things, we're actually reducing the potential for germs to be, carried from person to person. We are also putting chairs 6 feet, trying to do 6 feet apart. Some locations we don't have as much room as we might need in order to do that. So by people making an appointment, coming in at their appointment time, that will also help us control the number of people that are in a confined space. We're also putting people, if we have multiple people and don't have exactly 6 feet between them, we're putting people back to back so that if they do cough or they do speak, when you speak, you actually sometimes give out body fluid. So we want to make sure that that's going away from anybody else. We're also putting the beds back to back so that if there's less chance for any kind of virus to actually go between people in a blood donation setting. So it's all about safety first. We've got a lot of blood drives on the books, but we've also lost a lot of blood drives. We have lost, just here in Georgia alone, 204 programs as of Wednesday. Okay, and today's Friday, so the numbers are very, very fluid. Each day we find out about another group that has decided not to host the blood drive. Many of them are businesses, and the reason that they've chosen not to do it is they might have people that travel internationally or people that are traveling nationally, and they want to try and keep everything contained, and that's their choice. Closing of schools is a big one. In schools, we have a ton of kids that are out there that are healthy, that could be potential donors. But in order to be able to try and keep the virus down as far as it growing, we want to invite those students to actually go to a blood drive in their community. So
when's the next blood drive?
We've got quite a few still on the book. So here in Jessup, I thank you all for being so gracious and looking in your hearts and keeping these blood drives on the books. We've got one coming up at the VFW, and that is actually on April 10th. Okay, we have one in Hinesville at the Chick-fil-A on March 31st, and that one's from 10 until 2. And the one at the VFW is 2 until 7. And then we have one up in Appleton County at the First Baptist Church on the 14th of April, and that's from 2 to 6. We have one right now at Coastal Pines here in Jessup. And depending on what they decide as far as the school and the educational process, that could go on. And that one is 10 to 2 on the 15th. We don't know for sure about that one. We also have one at our standard one that is done by the lovely Shriners, and that is at the Baptist Church here in Jessup, and that is on the 20th, which is Monday of April. And then on that Friday, the Jessup First United Methodist Church from 2 until 7, we have a blood program there. And then in our world famous Bloodmobile, we have one on the 30th of April at the Jessup Health and Rehab.
So all these are set up, but
Yes.
but people need to keep tuned in or keep a schedule in case something changes, right?
Yes. I'd like them
All these
to
blood drives.
go online on a regular basis to redcrossblood.org, key in their zip code, and then if they're feeling good, go ahead and make an appointment. If they start not feeling well, go in and cancel their appointment. The more we can see as far as appointments, the better we can plan. The more we can help with social distancing. The more we can ensure that we have a safe public. Blood donation is a very, very safe thing to do, and we're taking extra precautions to make it even safer. But we want people to also be very vigilant, and if they're not feeling good, it's not their day to donate, whether we're having a coronavirus or whether we're not. So just be mindful of those things. Don't make an appointment if you don't plan on coming, because that takes it away from somebody else that might need an appointment. I'm asking for people in the community to step forward if they're feeling well and make an appointment and go and donate. For those, if we wind up with more cancellations, then I'm going to be asking people who maybe have a fixed site to allow us the privilege of coming in on a weekly basis and actually hosting a blood drive there. I've done that in some of the other communities that I work with, and that's turned out to be very successful.
My question is, can an individual make an appointment if they want to give blood and not wait for a blood drive? Can they? I see these numbers. Red Cross asks for people to do that. So if someone's out there, they're healthy, they want to give a pint of blood, they want to do it today or next week, how do they do that?
Go online to redcrossblood.org, and they can key in their zip code, and then they can key in a search area. So they can go up to 100 miles radius from where that zip code is resident, and then it will show all of the blood programs that are available to them, and then they can make an appointment for one.
Okay.
So it's, if people want to do it today.
Right, because like I said, they're saying is that the need is there, so
Oh,
we
it
just want
is.
to make sure we get that information out. If somebody feels like they can give a pint of blood today or next week, that's the number to call, 1-800-RED-CROSS-BLOOD.org, and make the appointment themselves.
Yes. Please, anybody out there that hears this, please do that. We need all blood types. We are in a severe shortage. We have hospitals that are actually canceling elective surgeries through the grace of God. We're still able to take care of the critical needs, but we need your help.
A lot of people want to know what can they do during these trying times right now. Well, give blood.
Absolutely.
I mean, the donations are down because blood drives are being canceled, so you can go off and give blood. The blood drives are coming up here in the area in April, and do your part in trying to help folks out.
That would be wonderful. Thank
Cindy
you.
Bauer in here this morning from the American Red Cross. Any final comments or questions, Bob?
I just appreciate you coming in and keeping us up to date. And they said we'll continue to, let people know these blood drives are taking place here in Wayne County. So far, the ones that have taken place have been successful. Jill Bliss was in here last week and talked about the one at the hospital.
Yes.
Went over their goal, which was good news. So, but again, it is an important thing to people keep in mind that blood is definitely needed this time with everything going on. So,
I just want to express my personal gratitude for you guys allowing me to come in and share this information. And on behalf of the Red Cross, we just couldn't be more grateful for your support.
Anything we can do to help, and just get those news releases and press releases to us. And anytime you want to be on the show, just let us know.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bob, anything else?
No, that'll do it.
All right. Everybody have a good day. All right, you're listening to the world-famous Butch and Bob Show right here on WIFO 105.5 FM in Jessup. Big Dog Country Radio. Butch Hubbard here with you. It's 8:37 here on this Friday morning, first day of spring, the 20th of March. Coming up.
The world famous Butch and Bob Show.